Hello everyone, I am Marie van de Sande. I'm a postdoctoral fellow at Leiden Observatory in the Netherlands, and I had a Marie Curie fellowship in 2021 to 2023, and I was recently awarded an ERC Starting Grant. As my research is on astrophysics, so I'm an astrophysicist by training. My research focuses on the chemistry in the outflows of AGB stars. So I focus on making chemical kinetics models, so it's a more theoretical side of things, but I also have some experience with observations and radiative transfer modeling. So it's astrochemistry, it's quite interdisciplinary, which makes it quite fun. So I'll just quickly show you a slide that shows my career so far. So here we go. Oops. I did my PhD at the KU Leuven in Belgium, and I graduated in 2018. I then went on as an individual fellow of the Research Foundation Flanders. So that's an independent, well, it's a governmental research funding agency in Flanders, and I stayed at KU Leuven. But of course, like my career isn't quite as linear as it seems. I applied for a PhD fellowship during my PhD, so to be independently funded, and I didn't get it. And before I went on to be this individual fellow, I also applied for a postdoc position in Taiwan. Did get that one, but I didn't accept it for personal reasons. I applied for a postdoc position at the University of Leeds, got an interview, didn't get it, and I also did my first application of the Marie Curie Fellowship to go to Leeds and wasn't successful. But I was successful a second time around, which was great. In the meantime, I applied for a permanent position in the Netherlands. Okay, maybe that was a bit too soon, but you have to get your name out there. Then I moved to Leeds, applied for another permanent position, didn't get an interview. That was at the beginning of the Marie Curie. And then towards the end of the Marie Curie, so after the second year, actually, I started to apply like crazy. And I submitted 6 applications in total. I got 2, and I chose to go to Leiden. I didn't get an Ernest Rutherford Fellowship or an interview. I didn't get a University Research Fellowship to go to the UK. I didn't get a postdoc position to go to Sweden. Did get a fellowship to go to Chalmers, and I got an interview for the FWO, but by that time I already had a job. So quite a lot of applications going on. And then this year, or last year, I got a starting grant, and I will take it to Dublin. But in the meantime, I had already applied to a permanent position in the Netherlands, interview, didn't get it. And I also applied for a permanent position in Sweden, but well, I'm still waiting to hear if I have an interview, but it's not needed anymore, but okay. Anyway, just to show that even though my trajectory seems very linear and you go from PhD to fellowship, starting grant, there was a lot of failure along the way, a lot of applications, a lot of rejections. So rejections, unfortunately, are normal in this career. So I started my ERC journey because of this postdoctoral position in Leeds that I didn't get. So my host was Catherine Walsh at Leeds. She had this postdoctoral position opening up, completely out of my field. Well, still astrophysics, but disks and not outflows. But, you know, I was going to give it a go. Anyway, didn't get the position, but she did invite me to apply for for this Marie Curie position. We already knew each other from before because we started a collaboration at the end of my PhD. So we did have like similar goals, but I just wasn't the right fit for this postdoctoral position. So by applying for a job and not getting it, I did have an opportunity to find the host for a Marie Curie fellowship. So April, we started the conversation. June, I went over for a week to visit so we could draft it together, because writing a fellowship application, and especially something like the Marie Curie, is very detailed. You don't have a lot of space. They want to know a lot of things, and they want you to say the right things at the right time. So spend enough time on writing this proposal. So I started in June writing the drafts, and I attended a Marie Curie writing workshop that was hosted by the EU team of the University of Leeds. I also attended a workshop hosted by the KU Leuven, so the university where I was working at, and I advise you to get all of the help that you can. So not just your host, also really rely on the EU teams of your host institution. Every host institution has one, and they're very helpful and they're very friendly, and they can help you with all of the details. So I started in June, but I also took like a month of holidays because I just finished my PhD and I needed a break. So I wrote the first draft, went on a holiday, and then came back in August. And then I worked another month exclusively on writing the Marie Curie proposal. So spent at least 1 month just writing, preferably more. Some people can write very quickly. Some people can write, well, don't write as quickly, but still just give yourself more time than you think you need. Also, it's just good to have more time for everybody that's going to give you feedback. You don't want to rush everybody, give everybody enough time. And with everybody, I mean your host, if your host institution, the EU team. So they're not really experts in what you do, but they give extremely valuable feedback of like, oh, you say this word in this section, but actually you should say it there. Because it's all these minor details that really, really make a difference. Also, your PhD supervisor, any mentors you have, your collaborators. It's better to ask more people for feedback than not ask anyone. You don't write a proposal in isolation. It's your idea. Well, your idea together with that of your host, but you don't write it in isolation. You write it together with a whole village of people. And I also suggest that you read successful proposals because it's such a long, but then also at the same time not long enough proposal. They want to know a lot of information, and there's a lot of different subsections and exactly what goes where and how other people have formatted. It's really helpful to me. And generally, your host institution can give you some successful proposals, but if you know people that had a Marie Curie, just ask them and ask them to, if they would like to send you their proposal. Generally, people don't volunteer it because it's like sort of private information. You shouldn't pass it along. But if you ask, most people are very happy to help you. So ask for help, both for preparing the proposal, proofreading. You're not alone in this. Maybe some people do it all alone, but I don't think that really minimizes your chances to be successful. So by leaving me enough time, I still found it stressful. But by putting these mini deadlines for myself and telling people, oh, I'm going to send you the draft on that Friday, please give me feedback a week from them, I sort of made it manageable. So it's stressful, but you can manage your stress if you manage your time. So there's a few things that are specific for the Marie Curie, and one is the two-way transfer of knowledge. So I applied twice. I didn't get it the first time around. I did get it the second time around. One of the things that they sort of caught me out on was a two-way transfer of knowledge the first time around. So it's not just you that's going to your host and is going to learn new things. It's also your host that needs to gain something from having you in their team, and you actually teaching your host something new or contributing something new to their team. So don't neglect that aspect. It's very important. It's really just a two-way transfer that they want to see. You're learning things from them, but they're also learning things from you. It's not just an apprenticeship. It's a win-win situationship. So you have to also frame yourself as an asset to the university and your host and their team. It also needs to be very timely research. So why do you do this now? Like, why hasn't it been done before? So if it's like, don't make it sound too easy, but also why does it need to be done now and by you? Why can't it be somebody else at a different place, at a different host in 10 years? So you have to, same holds for the ERC. It needs to be you, it needs to be now, and it needs to be via EU funding. Only the Marie Curie will make this sort of research possible. So when I'm talking about support, I can just only say, well, repeat, ask for help, especially when it comes to the admin side of things. The EU portal is a very enormous beast with loads of buttons, and some parts are modern and other parts are quite old-fashioned. But again, the EU team of your host will help you with these things. So that's something that I found quite daunting, just this all panel stuff and all the clicks, and you will experience it once you start to make your profile. It's a huge thing, and there's so many things you have to fill out. But again, your EU team will help you with that. Also, something that I found quite complicated to start with was how to structure the proposal. But again, look at successful proposals, ask for help for the people that already had a successful Marie Curie, like what should I prepare? How do I structure this? And so I didn't get it the first time. I had to reapply, which fortunately was possible because I had this other fellowship in the meantime. And the three main criteria, I looked at my eligibility stuff, was that the interaction with the host wasn't well laid out. And that's one thing that the Marie Curie really likes, is an enormous Gantt chart, like 1 page or almost 1 page. So I added a weekly meetings with host and then just colored that whole section for the whole 2 years. And then the interactions with the host were more clear. The two-way transfer from me to the host also wasn't clearly laid out enough. And another comment that I got was that I was saying that I was going to do a lot of research, well, research, of course, but outreach in Leeds, but I only had little experience so far. So in the year in between, I really focused on getting more outreach experience. So that section didn't seem quite so tacked on. Like, if you're going to say you're going to do all this stuff, you have to prove it as well. Like, don't just say you're an amazing outreacher. Well, I didn't say that, of course, but don't just say you're amazing, say you're going to do all these great things. Show them. If you don't say it, show it. And for the second iteration, I spent 1 month on it because, well, I already had quite a decent draft ready. I had to change 1 work package because I already did 1 work package, and I got some very useful feedback as well. And I got it the second time around. So based on the feedback from the Marie Curie panel, I got to improve the proposal, and it worked. I got it the second time around, which was great. So maybe summarize, don't do it by yourself, ask for help, look at successful proposals, think about your future already after the Marie Curie, like where do you see yourself going? All right. So a Marie Curie fellowship is only 2 years. So it's relatively short for a postdoc position. And it's definitely quite tough because after 1 year, you already have to start applying to other positions because it takes roughly 1 year from opening a call to, well, getting a position. So in that aspect, it's a bit inconvenient. However, there's a lot of prestige attached to a Marie Curie fellowship. So the current fellowship that I have, the Oort Fellow at Leiden, I was told by one of my astro friends that they were also thinking of applying for this fellowship. But when they reached out to well, the same professor that I reached out to, they were told, like, oh, you don't have a chance. There's a Marie Curie fellow that's already applying for this position. So it really is the Rolls Royce of postdoctoral fellowships. Even if it's only 2 years, it opens doors for all the fellowships and for a starting grant as well. It shows that you are able to get very competitive funding, well, having the ability to get lots of funding puts you already on, well, puts you a bit higher in the pile of CVs whenever you apply for a different position. I'll now talk a bit more about my ERC expertise. So I applied in the last year I was eligible to do so. So in my 7th year post-PhD, the eligibility criteria will change next year. I did this in part because I didn't feel like I was quite ready to lead my own group beforehand, but also because I already applied for 6 positions in my final year of my Marie Curie, and an ERC grant is a lot of extra work, so I just didn't have the time. And once I had this position, well, just wanted to take a quick break from applying, so I didn't apply to any jobs for a year. And in the meantime, I also co-supervised a PhD student, so that really amped up my confidence to apply for this huge grants and do all of this work in preparation. So I applied 7 years post-PhD, well, just before 7 years post-PhD. And the way that I've also figured out that I was ready is that I keep this list of project ideas, which is useful if you apply for, well, if you want to have a master student working with you during your PhD, for example. And after a while, this list gets quite long, and you just simply don't have the time to do everything by yourself. So you think, oh, well, it would be great if I had a PhD student that could do these things with me. Like I could teach someone how to do these things. I don't have time to do everything by myself. And then there's some more ambitious things that you think like, well, it would be great if I could hire a postdoc that can help me with achieving my research goals. So after a while, my list was long enough, and I said, okay, let's go for it. Let's apply for this starting grant. And the starting grant is, again, a lot of work. The deadline is in the middle of October, and I started focusing, well, only writing on the grants in early August. But keeping in mind that I already knew what I wanted to do. So the project was sort of ready, it was in my head, but I knew what I wanted to do. I just had to write it, and that took me 2 months and a half. Again, start early, leave enough time for feedback from your collaborators, ask for help, look at successful proposals, see what other people did, how they phrase things, what worked, what didn't work. And this way you can start writing your own proposal. Now, there's a few things that the ERC really wants to see. So they want this frontier research that is ambitious. But what does it mean to be ambitious? Well, I interpreted it as, well, you need to do something that has never been done before. And why hasn't it been done before? Because it's really difficult. So it's really hard, needs to be done now. You're the person to do so because of your background. And one of the things that I got in the feedback, you get feedback as well from the ERC of the panel and then also external referees, was that they liked my creative approach because I mix different approaches, techniques, and fields. So that's something else that they like to see. Are you just all pulled up in one subfield, or are you interacting with different parts of astrophysics? And in my case, as an astrochemist, I have contacts with theoretical chemists as well as laboratory chemists as well. So because I'm creating all these connections, well, leveraging all my connections and using these different fields, that was a creative approach according to them, and they liked it as well. So ambitious problem, a creative solution. And then another thing that the ERC likes to see is high risk, high reward. So the terminology isn't used anymore because what I was told is because it's quite difficult, for example, if you're a mathematician, to say that this is high risk, high reward research, but that doesn't mean it's not valuable. So they erased that terminology out of their criteria, but basically that's still what they're looking for. So high risk, high reward, if you manage to pull it off, what is the impact on your field, but also on other fields? So in my case, not just AGB stars, but all of astrophysics. How could I impact like supernovae and then higher galaxy? You can take it to higher redshifts and cosmology. You have to, still be realistic about things, but think beyond your local bubble and beyond the local impact that you can have, because they're not going to give €1.5 billion to fix this this important problem. Maybe for a small field, it needs to be important for more people than just like 5 researchers focusing on a specific topic. So really be ambitious in how you're going to tackle it. Use different methods. Don't just include things that you can do. So for that, you can use PhD students, right? You already have the knowledge, you can train PhD students, but you can also hire postdocs with the money. And in that way, you can hire expertise and hire knowledge that you need to successfully achieve your research goals of your grant. Also take a look at the panel. So you don't know who's on the panel by the time that you submit, but you can take a look at who was on the panel 2 years ago, because you can only be on the panel every 2 years. And people are on the panel for three times or something like that. Basically, by looking at the panel 2 years ago, you have a rough idea on who will be on your panel this round. And most likely, the majority of people, or maybe everyone, won't be in your field. And then you're a stellar researcher and you have to convince cosmologists. So same for the Marie Curie, just make it appealing to everyone. And not just someone who's specifically interested in your field or even your specific topic. It needs to be appealing to a very wide range of researchers. I was lucky, I think, because there was an AGB researcher on the panel 2 years ago, and again, last year on the actual panel. And when I saw that she was going to be on the panel, then I specifically read up a bit more on her research and made sure to cite some of her papers. Like, don't be too obvious about it, but make sure that you know that they exist and that their research is also relevant to you and your results will be relevant to them. So look at the panel. And another thing I did was I printed off the criteria. So I just highlighted the ambitiousness and the high risk, high reward stuff. But there's these 5 criteria. I printed them off and I put them on my wall, and they were just constantly in my line of sight. And keep them in mind at all times. See if your proposal should really answer all these criteria constantly almost. So have them in your line of sight. Right. About the host. I found my host in May of the year. And don't leave it at the last moment, especially because not all universities would like to or can host you. For example, my current university in the Netherlands, they didn't want to host me because if I was successful, they would have to make me permanent because of labor laws. In the Netherlands, if you have a contract longer than 4 years, you need to be made a permanent staff member, and they didn't want to do that. Fair enough, not the Netherlands. And same for Sweden. I wasn't able to find a host there, but then I found a host in Belgium, where, those labor laws don't exist, so I could still apply. So for me specifically, my host isn't, my research is new and novel to my host institution. You don't need to be fitting in with other professors there, as long as there's some connection, right? So my research will focus on forming dust in the AGB stars, and at my original host in Belgium, they were looking at the evolution of the interstellar medium. So then my sort of selling argument was, the dust that AGB stars produce will be so my output will be the input to your models. And so because AGB researchers, there's not many universities with a specific center on AGB research. So that's how I found my original host. But I keep saying original because an ERC grant is very portable. You can move it around before you start or even after you started. And once I got to know that I had a starting grant, I used it as leverage to get a permanent position. My original host would give me a 10-year postdoctoral contract, which is a long time, but also what am I supposed to do afterwards? So I, started emailing around, and I managed to secure a permanent position in Dublin in Ireland. So that's the beauty of the ERC. You get a bunch of money. You can do whatever you want with it. It's really bottom-up research. It's your idea, your group that you want to build, and then you can use it as a huge bargaining chip to get a permanent position. So your host needs to make sense. So not necessarily experts in your field, but it's not, you can still move around afterwards. So that's the beauty of it. So the ERC is also in 2 parts. So you have to write a proposal. I spent 2.5 months on the proposal, and then I was notified in March that I went through to the next step, which is an interview, and my interview was at the end of May, and I spent 1 month on preparing the interview, which was a 10-minute presentation followed by 20 minutes of questions. So very short. It's virtual, so the panel meets in Brussels, but all the candidates are just virtually so it's just the most stressful Zoom call ever. And 1 month of preparation, and I had 7 mock interviews. So again, ask for help. Ask people who already went through this process to help you. Ask people who are panel members to help you. And generally, I find that people are quite willing to help you. Your mentors, your collaborators. Don't be afraid to ask for help. If they don't have time, they will say no. But people are, in my experience, people are very happy to help you succeed in your career. So again, start on time, ask for help, prepare. And that's about it that I wanted to say. So good luck with your proposal writing, and all the best.